Greetings, everybody. So we start the Gita. Today we've spoken a lot about the Gita, tried to build up some excitement. Mentioned how it's now a canonical text in the West as well. Find it in any good bookstore. Go to Barnes and Nobles, go to the religion section, look under Eastern religion, and you will certainly find more than one copy of the Bhagavad Gita. You should. And any bookstore by now. So great classic of world spirituality. Unlike some of the more obscure schools, Nyaya, Mimamsa, nobody's reading those even in India, other than scholars and philosophers in academia, and a few Shastris and Pandits. But the Gita is now a major text of world spirituality, and it deserves to be. So the Gita is a busy text. Remember, it's part of the Mahabharata epic, the biggest epic in literary history, 100,000 verses, not lines, verses, each verse 4 lines on average. So that's 400,000 lines. And so it's a big war. And we don't need to go into the story, but it's a sort of fratricidal war. We're not quite brothers, but cousins. On the one side are the 5 Pandavas, and on the other side are the Kurus, their cousins, 100 Kurus. And the 5 Pandavas, from which Arjuna is the middle Pandava, and especially intimate with Krishna, who is Ishvara. We'll find out what the Gita says about who Krishna is. So the exchange takes place. I don't need to get into the background story as to how they ended up on a battlefield, but it's a war that by the standards of the day was considered a dharmic war, a righteous war, by the standards of that day and age in that context. And there they are, and the war is about to begin. So we're really, so we're not going to focus so much on some of the other teachings of the Gita. Gita starts off establishing that we are Atman, that we're pure consciousness, we're not the body minds. And so that's, we can say, the foundation of the Gita's teaching, and then it builds up on that in terms of the relationship of the Atman with the Supreme Atman. But we're going to be focused on Ishvara because our course is on Ishvara. Okay, but there's a lot going on in the text over and above what we will be focusing on for our purposes in an Ishvara-centric philosophy course. Okay, so up to now we've had sort of Brahman in the Upanishads, somewhat vague. Brahman is just that from which, remember Vedanta, that from which creation, etc., emanates. So it's intelligent. Sutra number 5 of Vedanta. So therefore, Ishvara is associated with Brahman in some sort of way. Ramanuja, Ishvara is the highest expression of Brahman. Shankara, Ishvara is secondary, only in conventional reality, which is, remember, an illusion. But in higher reality, Brahman is impersonal, transpersonal, there's no individuality, no soul, no God, no world, just an all-pervading, infinite, blissful consciousness. We don't need to revisit that now, because those lectures are all available if you need to revisit them. So now we're going to see who the Gita says Krishna is. And we'll start. So now Ishvara is, I beg your pardon. So what does Ishvara look? So now it's just been philosophical. Brahman, somewhat vague, intelligent design, source of the universe. And then we had argumentations that, Ishvara associated with that intelligent being, that's all, that there's intelligence, right? And then countering the arguments of Samkhya, which says we don't need to posit intelligence, matter itself through its own mechanisms and its own inherent nature. It can account for the coming together of the ingredients of the universe, the subatomic particles, the forces, we might say. Today, the gunas interacting and producing the forms of the world. We don't need to posit an intelligence outside of the gunas, outside the matter, right? So Vedanta pushes back against that, rebuts that, and says there must be intelligence. We've looked at that, and then we've looked at Nyaya, again arguing for a producer, a bit vague. Ishvara is a producer, an intelligent producer. This is as far as they want to go. That's as far as human reason can take one. That there must be an intelligence. That's it. Remember Ramanuja? Right at the beginning, he says, actually, we can posit there's an intelligence, but nothing more than that. We don't know whether it's benevolent. We don't know if there's one intelligence. It could be two or three. How do we know? A million. There could be infinite intelligences. We can't. All we can say with reason is that we can argue for an intelligence behind creation, which nowadays we call intelligent design. Anything, and here's the point, anything more has to be revealed. So now we're going to see Ishvara revealing himself in the form of Sri Krishna. Of course, there are other forms of Ishvara who manifest. There's Shiva, there's Vishnu, there's an infinity of forms. But Krishna has been certainly one of the most primary in Indian history, present and past. Okay, so now we're going to see real life Ishvara, not the Ishvara of the scholars, of the philosophers, of debating Buddhists, debating the non-theists. We're moving away from that, and we're going to get a sense of Ishvara revealing himself in human space and time, not a transcendent, transspatial, trans-temporal intelligence, but that remember Patanjali says is the guru. He interacts with humans in some sort of way. So now we're going to see how the Indian tradition depicts Ishvara manifesting in our world, in our dimension of space and time and cause and effect. And here we see this is real life Hinduism. This is the Ishvara that Hindus actually worship in real life, in the temples all over India, now increasingly all over New Jersey. There's temples springing up everywhere. Durga temples, Shiva temples. Okay, what does that look like? So let's go into our Gita. I think today we're scheduled to read 4, 7, and 9. Oops, that was not a good start. So, okay, I'm going to put you on hold. And this time, I'm not going to hit the stop button. So I think it's the... So I did it again. I wanted to hit pause. I'm such a loser. I wanted to hit pause to bring up the Gita, and I hit I have to get this into my thick head. The white square stops the recording, and the 2 lines is pause. All right, let's see if I get it right third time. That's the second time I've done this, my friends. Forgive me. White hair. So I come from a generation we used to write with an ink pen. We would get a pen, fill it up with ink, and we would write by hand. And when I was a student, it was still typewriters in the beginning. The computers came. Well, maybe no, that's not true. There were computers, but they were clunky computers, and you had to. It's not that everybody had a computer. But when I first was in college, it was all handwritten. Everybody, when I first went to university in England, when would that be? In the 70s. There were no computers, and students didn't use typewriters. We wrote everything by hand. Our papers were all in hand. Anyway, so trying to catch up here with the technology. So let's bring up our. You have to watch the first part, right? There was a 7-minute clip, and I'm going to put that as, whatever the lecture number is, 20, whatever. Then Bhagavad Gita part A, and this will be part B. So you have to watch both. That's one lecture. It's not the 2 lectures for the week. There's 2 lectures for the week, but this lecture is going to be in 2 parts. The first one's 7 minutes. This will be an hour and 13 minutes. Okay, so let's bring up chapter 4 where we see who Ishvara is according to the Gita. So we start off with, and we have another term for Ishvara here, is Bhagavan. So Ishvara is just a sort of the creator being. It really the being with most power. Ish is to exert power. And what's the most powerful thing you can do is create a universe. Can you think of anything more powerful than that? Well, you could say create multiple universes. Fine, that's still Ishvara, because the Indian traditions, in fact, do accept multiple universes. Vishnu reclines on the ocean. and innumerable universes emanate out of the pores of his skin. So that's still Ishvara. So whether you want to posit one universe or multiple parallel universes, however you want to construe physical reality, Ishvara is the source of it. So the term Ishvara is the being that has the most power, and what can be more powerful than creating one, or what to speak about a multitude of universes, right? Now, so that's just an abstract entity, some kind of abstract, intelligent, personal. It's personal. It's not impersonal. It's personal in the sense that it's a personal being distinct from the Atmans. Let's put it that way. It has a personal identity, distinct, an individual. Let's rephrase it. That Ishvara is an individual, different from the individuals that are the Atmans. That's how it's understood in Nyaya, in all Vedanta, including Shankara, although of course Shankara then individuality is relegated to conventional reality. But the other Vaishnava traditions, that individuality is eternal, Mimamsa, eternal. Of course, Mimamsa doesn't accept Ishvara, but the idea that the Atmans at least are individual pervades all schools of Indian philosophy other than Advaita Vedanta and other than some Shakta traditions we don't need to, they're not part of our course. Right. Ishvara then, of the individual, the most power, with will and intelligence, desire to create, the Chandogya, desire to multiply, but nothing much more than that. Now that Ishvara manifests form, that Ishvara manifests form, then frequently we find the term Bhagavan in addition to Ishvara. It's just an alternative, but when we use the term Bhagavan, it's generally pointing to Ishvara manifest in form. The Vishnu Purana defines Bhagavan as one who has 6 qualities. So form is a quality. And so when Ishvara manifests quality like beauty and power and strength, then we might use the term Bhagavan. So then Krishna now is being referred to as Bhagavan because there he is. He's blue. He has a beautiful blue color. He manifests his beauty and strength. The 6 qualities of Bhagavan are beauty, strength, renunciation, knowledge, right? Jnana, virya, rupa, knowledge, power. Did I say that? Beauty, renunciation, and there are 6 qualities that they'll come to me in a minute. Now we're talking about Ishvara as manifests in ways that are perceivable, that are potentially perceivable. So here Krishna says, let's see what the Gita says about Ishvara. Now Ishvara as Bhagavan manifests with qualities, with forms, with a personality. So Krishna has a flute, he has peacock feathers, all the different forms of Ishvara have specific characteristics and colors, right? So Krishna is black, actually. Krishna means black. But some forms are white, some are golden, and so forth. So Krishna says, in the beginning, I spoke this yoga, the yoga that we're not really focusing on. A yoga a bit different from Patanjali. It's actually yoga in the world, whereas Patanjali is just, still the mind completely, and so it's inactive. Gita says, well, there's inactive yoga, inaction yoga, and action yoga. Let's not worry about that. But whatever, both of them, Krishna says he spoke to in primordial times. To Vivishwan spoke to Manu to Ishvara. Don't worry about these names, but they're primordial, legendary figures. So Krishna is saying, in the very beginning, I gave these yoga systems, or 2 of them. Here he's speaking about one, but in chapter 3 and 5, he speaks about both of them. He says, I imparted them both. But the action yoga, as opposed to Patanjali, in action, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, still in the mind, the action yoga, which has occupied, we're in now chapter 4, but actually chapter 2 and 3 were all about action yoga. He says, I gave it. I'm the source of it. And he gave it through this lineage, Vivishwan, Manu, Ikshvaku, and it came down in human history through the lineages, and the saintly kings understood this discipline through a line of succession. Some of you may know the papal succession of the popes in the Vatican going back to St. Peter. It's called the papal succession. So likewise, knowledge systems in India are handed down. But with the passing of time, these teachings became lost. Not all yoga became lost, but the action in the world yoga became lost. So that's how he starts off in chapter 4, right? We're not so much interested in that. We're interested in what comes next. And he says, because you're my devotee as well as my friend, I now declare this ancient discipline of yoga to you. You got lost. So I'm gonna reestablish it. I'm going to re-deliver it. I delivered it once in ancient times. It was handed down in the lineages, got lost just because of the force of time. Here I am reestablishing it. Remember Patanjali? He said Ishvara is the guru. What is the guru? One who imparts knowledge. So here we are. And he says it's a supreme, I wouldn't say secret, but it's an intimate thing. Now, Arjuna gets confused because Krishna is actually his brother, apparently. Not brother, cousin. It's his cousin. Okay? So Krishna's father, Vasudeva, is brother with Arjuna's mother, Kunti. So they're cousins. So that would be maternal cousins, something like that. For Arjuna, anyway. All right, don't worry about that. So there he is, reestablishing the yoga. And now Arjuna gets confused. What do you mean you spoke this in primordial times, thousands and thousands and aeons ago, ages and ages and ages ago? How can I understand that you spoke these teachings in the beginning, right? The beginning of creation, almost. Your birth comes after the birth of Ishvara. You're born with me. He thinks. He doesn't realize who Krishna is. He thinks, you're my cousin. You're my my uncle's son, aren't you? Your birth came way after Vivaswan, the legendary figure of ancient times, like we might say Abraham or Noah or something in the Old Testament, in the Bible. Right? If someone says, oh, me and Noah, hanging out on the boat, on the ark, you'd say, what are you talking about? If you believed there was an ark and if you believed in a Noah, you'd be like, what do you mean? you're right here now in New Brunswick in the 21st century. You're talking about you with Noah on the boat. So he gets confused. And now this is where Krishna reveals his real nature. So Krishna Bhagavan says, oh, Arjuna, scorcher of the enemy. Remember, on the battlefield, they're about to fight. So Arjuna is a warrior. So he gets addressed as a warrior with the epithets, the title of a warrior. Both you and I have passed many births. I know them all, whereas you do not. Okay, first difference between, remember Patanjali says Purusha is, Ishvara is a Purusha like other Purusha, but Vishesha, special. How is he special? Never been affected by karma or the kleshas, supremely omniscient. And he is the teacher of the ancients. So how is Krishna going to be special as a type of Purusha? He's a conscious being. Remember, Purusha means a conscious individual, an individual that in essence transcends Prakriti, matter, and the laws of matter. He says, I've passed many births. I know them all, whereas you do not. So why don't we remember our past births? According to Sankhya Yoga, it's because of tamas, the guna of tamas. It covers the mind. It suppresses memories. We don't remember our past births, just like a dream, right? I'm sure we've all had the experience. We wake up from a dream. It's very, very vivid. And all of a sudden we realize we're awake. And then we say, no, I don't want to be awake yet. I want to go back to my dream. We try to go back. And just in that 1 second, gone. It's gone. We can't get back there. But we know it was real. Like that. So at death, so all the memories of the dream, gone. Maybe occasionally something triggers and, something happens in the day and all of a sudden it connects us with the dream and we get a flashback of the dream. But otherwise, we lose, it's gone. But we know it, the dreams were surfaced in the mind. Well, death is like that. You may say, why don't I remember my past births? Well, why don't you remember your dreams? And that's a question we can ask in the immediate here and now every single day. So if it is the case that we don't remember dreams, why can it not be the case that we wouldn't remember death, a past life experience at death? But Krishna's not influenced by tamas. It's because of tamas that memories get suppressed in the subconscious. In yoga psychology, the guna of tamas, right? Darkness, kind of the limiting and suppressing potency of the mind. I know my birth, you don't. So therefore, so just as Patanjali says that Ishvara is not subject by the kleshas and karma, by ignorance and ego, Krishna is saying the same thing. I'm not covered by the ignorance of my of my memories. My memories, my knowledge is supremely omniscient. I know everything. Remember Patanjali? I know everything. I remember all my past births. But what kind of births would God have? What kind of would they be? Well, 6. I'm actually unborn, says Krishna. I'm an eternal being, and I'm imperishable. I never die. I'm an eternal, imperishable being. And I'm the Lord of all beings. And if you go over here to the Sanskrit, you can look over verse number 6. And then we see Ajopisan Avyayatma Bhuta Ishvaro. Look at the word Ishvara right there. Ishvaro. I am the Ishvara. Bhutana means of all beings. So here it is. Krishna is saying, I am that Ishvara, the Ishvara of the Upanishads, the Ishvara of Sankhya and Yoga, the Ishvara that the Nyaya debates about, defends through logical reasoning. That's me. I take control of my material energy, my prakriti. I'm not controlled by prakriti. Even Patanjali says that. Ishvara is not controlled by kleshas and karma, remember? Go back to Patanjali. Sutra number 1, 23, 24, 25, 26 is about Ishvara. And in there he says maybe 24, 25. Klesha karma shaya anavichinnaha purusha vishesha Ishvara. He is a special purusha, not affected by kleshas. Here Krishna says, I'm not affected by prakriti. Kleshas are part of prakriti. It's my prakriti. So I control my prakriti and I appear through the agency of my creative power. I'm not forced to take a birth because of karma, and I'm stuck in a body that I had no control over. I just get born as a baby in some family that I didn't choose necessarily. I choose when I want to, where and when I want to enter the world. So I appear through the agency of my Atma Maya, by my Maya. So this is God appearing, choosing when, where, how, why, and entering the world completely out of pure omnipotence and free will, not under the control of any powers. Otherwise, it wouldn't be God. If there was a power that could control God, well, then that means the power is now the highest entity, because God is subject to it. And when does according to the Gita, when does God incarnate? When does Ishvara enter the world? Whenever there's a decline in Dharma, righteousness. When the world descends into unrighteousness. So whenever there's a decline in Dharma, we need to know this word now. It's one of the main words in the Gita. Dharma is the performance of righteous duty. We all have dharmas and many dharmas. We have, student dharma, teacher dharma, father dharma, daughter dharma, sister dharma, citizen dharma. So everyone has multiple dharmas demanding their attention. So dharma means righteous action. And we have different kinds of actions. We act in the world, in our careers. We act as children to our parents. And when we become parents, we have different dharmas towards our own children. We have dharmas to our siblings, which are different from dharmas to the parents, which are different from our dharma citizens. So multiple dharmas. Whenever there's a decline in dharma, descendant of Bharata, that's Arjuna. Okay, this is the whole thing is a conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. Sometimes the names are changed because one may use different names. Krishna has many, many names. Even an Arjuna, you might call him mighty armed one. You might call him, the sort of great warrior or bull amongst men. These are just kind of warrior compliments. So whenever there is a decline in Dharma, increase in Dharma, at that time I manifest myself. And this, of course, is the notion of Avatara, of incarnation, that God enters the world. Christians have some sense of this with Jesus Christ, of course, maybe not God, but the Son of God, that God, sends his Son, or God becomes flesh in some sort of way. There's a Trinity, there's a sort of Trinity and oneness. Well, the Gita, Krishna claims to be the Father, not the Son. I'm the Father of all beings, Pitamaha. So when does Ishvara manifest? Why? For the protection of the good and the destruction of those who do evil. So many of the incarnations of Vishnu, they destroy the bad guys. And also to reestablish Dharma. When Dharma, you'd like to think maybe now will be a good time for an incarnation in our crazy, in our kind of really calamitous moments, right, between our political systems that just spun out of control, just have really degenerated into partisan bickering and environment and all of the issues in the world. You think, well, now might be a good time for a quick incarnation, but I don't. According to the Indian text, there isn't one due for another approximately 418,000 years. So if you think things are bad, my friends, they're going to get a lot worse, according to the Indian scriptures. Here, to establish Dharma, I appear time and time again, right? Not just one. The Hindus would find that a silly idea, that God only comes one in the whole history of humanity. God just comes one in one, dusty corner of the world, sandy, corner of the world. No, there are unlimited avatars that come again, yuge, age after age after age. All right. So then he says, Arjuna, one who truly understands the divine nature of my birth and activities, one who understands that the stories of Krishna and Rama and Shiva and Vishnu are not myths. They're not, according to the tradition, they're not myths. They're not mythology. It's not Hindu mythology. This is God, any more than a Christian would say that Christ is Christian mythology. A Christian accepts Christ as a genuine manifestation of God, according to the theology of Christianity, God made flesh and all of that. But within, according to that theology, that it's kind of, let's just say, a divine presence. Of course, the early centuries of Christianity have a lot of debate about who is Christ. Is he God? Is he absolutely God? Or is he just a great prophet, a great kind of yogi type of figure? Or is he, so these things were debated for 2 or 3 centuries before they became resolved. Or at least before they became formalized into the Nicene Creed, that Christ is the only begotten Son of God, but only begotten. Hindus would say that if you get rid of this only, they have no problem accepting Christ as a divine being, but not only. That seems a very childish way, a very childish limitation of God. God must be unlimited and therefore must appear different places and different times, and maybe in different forms, and imparting different instructions that are appropriate for time and place. Different communities may need different types of instructions at different moments in historical time. That's the Hindu way of thinking about it. So here we get a sense of that, this yuge, age after age after age. So one who understands the divine nature of my birth and activities, my incarnations, upon quitting this body, is not reborn, become liberated just by understanding God and the real nature of God. And such a person comes to me, because attains some kind of a relationship with God. What that looks like, of course, is going to be understood differently in the different Vedanta traditions. The Gita, by the way, is one of the 3 Vedanta texts. So you've got the Vedanta text, the Upanishads, the source text, then the Vedanta Sutras written about the Upanishads, on the Upanishads, to clarify and systematize them. That's the second text. And then you have the Gita as the third text, which comprise the canon for the Vedanta traditions. 3 texts. Okay. So, and we know already the difference between Shankara and Ramanuja. So whatever differences they had about the relationship of Brahman and Ishvara, and the world and the souls, we've gone through it so many times. One more time, Shankara, Ishvara is only conventionally real, world conventionally real, souls conventionally real, but it all dissolves. Brahman is the ultimate true reality. Ramanuja, no. Brahman is Ishvara, is a personal being, is Krishna, is Vishnu. And the world is real and the souls are individual and eternally individual and real. None of it dissolves. Ignorance may dissolve, but not those ontological distinctions between these 3 categories: God, the world, the soul. Okay, not going to keep bringing that up again. Now, taking shelter, and we're going to read this through Ramanuja's lens, because in my view, it's much closer to the Gita than Shankara. Shankara's view, I think, is more easily accommodated in certain Upanishads, like the Chandogya. I think, many passages favor a monistic view and an Advaita view, but not the Gita. It's just clearly more dualistic. I mean, Shankara has ways of making sense of it. We know what they are. He would say that or everything in the Gita is just convention, is useful conventionally. Bhakti, devotion, God, but ultimately it gets superseded in ultimate reality. So taking shelter of me alone, many in the past whose passions, fears, and anger have been quieted by the austerity of knowledge, to know I am the Atman, I am pure consciousness, I'm not the body-mind. So all these passions and fears and anger, they all belong to the body-mind. They don't belong to the Atman, it's pure consciousness. So this is the austerity of knowledge. By keeping the knowledge, it's austere. You've got to keep the knowledge in your mind. Mind wants to slide off and contemplate the pleasures of the world. So to keep the knowledge there is hard work. But those who do that and keep the mind on God, on Ishvara, on Krishna, they attain the nature of God. Okay, so that's now what the Gita says Krishna is. He is that Ishvara incarnating. He comes to establish Dharma, and if one takes shelter of God, that's bhakti. Tanji calls it pranidhana, surrender to God. Let's read a bit more. O son of Partha, Prita, it's Arjuna. In whatever way they approach me, I reward them. However we approach God, God reciprocates in that mode. For all respects, mankind follows my path. Everyone follows the path of God because the world is an extension of God. So even if you're an atheist, you deny the existence of God according to the Gita, but God is still there, and one is still trapped by the world, and therefore following the laws of God because we're trapped by karma, we're trapped by our bodies, we're trapped by old age and death. So we may say, "Oh, there's no God," but we're still subject to the conditions established by God. And so in that sense, in all respects, mankind follow my path. We follow the path of Prakriti. We follow the laws of nature, even if we don't accept a higher power. Okay. And let's jump to 14. And then what about these small deities? The celestial beings of the Vedas. Well, Krishna says, well, in this world, mankind desires success. Those who are materialists and not interested in the Atman, they are interested in enjoying the world. Well, they worship the various deities, and they quickly get success. Success quickly arises from the formats of Vedic ritualism. And then he says here, let's skip that. The four divisions. Actions do not affect me. God is transcendent. Nor do I desire the results of action. God it doesn't have any desire. It's completely self-fulfilled, up to Rama. One who knows my nature is not bound by actions. In other words, by understanding God. And the only way to do that is completely surrender the mind to God. And when the mind is surrendered to God, then it's in a state of transcendence. It's lifted. It's now been lifted beyond the ignorance of the world. The ignorance meaning I think I'm body-mind. I think I will find happiness through my body-mind. So understanding action in this way, that everything belongs to me, everything is to be offered to God. Those in the past who desired liberation, they perform their duty. Do your duty in the world, but offer everything to God, understanding everything is God. The body is Prakriti, and Prakriti is the Shakti and energy of God. The world is God's energy. Even the soul is a spark of God. Understanding everything is God, and that's the way to liberation. Different from Patanjali. Patanjali, you close out the world, and you even shut down the mind, Chitta Vritti Nirodha. But in Bhakti, this is Bhakti, you don't shut anything down. You just offer it all to God. But you give up. No desire for yourself. You don't try to find happiness to fulfilling desires in the world. All right, so that's chapter 4. And lots of really good yogic teaching. I urge you to read the Gita. We obviously can't read it all. And we're just looking for verses that are focused on Ishvara. So let's go to chapter 7, which I believe is in this particular. Let's have a look. Chapter 6. Let's hope. Oh, there we are. Chapter 7. Okay, so we jump to chapter 7 because we're focusing on Ishvara. O son of Prita, listen as I tell you how by practicing yoga, and taking shelter of me, pranidhana, do your yoga, control the senses, practice meditation, read the sacred texts, follow the principles of yoga, do all of the stuff that the yogis do. I know we haven't spoken much about that because that hasn't been central to our course, but we looked at the 8 limbs of yoga, I believe we did. But anyway, there are, like any spiritual path, there are things that you follow: non-violence, don't kill animals, don't eat meat, be honest, be celibate, be chaste, be pure. These are the principles of spirituality. In most paths, many paths, spiritual parts of the world. So those are that's what it means to practice yoga: study the sacred texts, and of course, fixing the mind, focus the mind, and taking shelter of me, complete dependence on Ishvara. That's pranidhana. The understanding our own power is actually zero. We have will, but everything, our bodies, our minds, everything is given to us, and therefore it doesn't belong to us. And we get to decide how to use our bodies, our minds, our wills, our whatever possessions, whatever power we have in the world, and whatever resources we have. And bhakti is, well, it belongs to Bhagavan, but it belongs to God. Let's offer everything to God, to Ishvara. Okay, so now we're not in philosophy anymore, my friends. This is theology. This is Ishvaran theology. This is Ishvaran real life devotional practice. So I'm going to tell you how you practice yoga, but take shelter of me. Practicing yoga, but all the time surrendering everything to God. And now I'll tell you, you can come to know me with no doubts. Clear, right? Yata asamshayam, with no doubt. I shall declare to you in detail this knowledge. That's both theoretical, I'm going to, and also realize you can I'm just not just theory. I'm not just going to give you something to believe in, some more dogma. I'm not going to just give you acts of faith and dogma. I'm going to give you knowledge that if you practice it, you will realize it. You'll see your perception of reality will change. You'll have a change in the way, your lens of viewing the world, your mode of viewing the world will change. And it will become, you'll see truth. Not just hear about truth. I will give you a method by which you can perceive that truth immediately in the world, in yourself, in reality. And knowing this, nothing more is to be known. Now, among thousands of human beings, one may strive for perfection. How many people really take to the real yoga path? Amongst thousands, maybe one really commit to seeking truth. Most people are just interested in trying to find happiness, getting an education, making money, having a family, buying a house, trying to find happiness in the world through these established means that society has established. You're going to be happy, you get a job, you make money, you find a partner, you have a house, you have a family. And of course, no one is happy. No one is deeply happy. But so one out of thousands like that, one really dedicates his or her life to seeking perfection. And out of many of those, out of many of those, there's thousands, one may strive. And of those who strive, out of many of those, which means out of hundreds of thousands and millions of regular people, hardly anyone knows me in truth. We may know there's an Atman, we may know there's some kind of a deep level self, but who knows God? Krishna says, hardly anybody knows me. And now we get he starts to express his powers. So first of all what we would now say subatomic particles and forces, the ingredients of physics. Back then it would be earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intellect, and ego. He's got sense of self. This is my material nature divided into 8. My material nature, matter. Oh, greatly armed Arjuna, besides the lower nature, there's another higher, which is conscious. Matter is unconscious, a chit. But there's the chit, which consists of the living beings, the jiva, bhuta, and they sustain the universe. Otherwise, it would just be dead matter. Like physicists say, other planets are just dead chunks of energy or matter. There's no life there. So what is life? that somehow is present in this world that brings that things spring into life, like trees and all the species and the fish and the humans and all the various species of life. Well, of course, in the Hindu tradition, that's the soul, that's the Atman. So that's the second. Krishna says there's two types. There's the world and the souls. So all beings arise from these two natures. He calls them Prakriti, I think, or yonis, two natures. Okay, but who's he? I am both the origin and dissolution of all of that, of this entire world. So this is Ramanuja's God with a big G, from whom the world emanates and the souls are supported and sustained. O conqueror of wealth, there's nothing that's superior to me. This is the ultimate highest truth. It's Krishna, it's Ishvara. Personal Ishvara is Krishna. This whole world is bound to me as pearls on a thread. Why are the pearls on a thread? You can't see the thread. You can't see the thread that's holding up the pearls, but clearly there must be something holding them up. The pearl necklace is nicely, it's shaped in a loop. What's keeping it all together? There must be something holding it all together. That's the thread. You may not see it. So likewise, there must be intelligence pervading the universe. What's holding it all together? This finely tuned universe. You may have heard of the fine tuning argument. Krishna says, that's me. I am the taste in water, right? Because so Krishna is both Prakriti and the souls, but is also distinct. He's not exhausted. Like the sun, there's the light and the heat, but is also the sun. Light and heat emanate from the sun, but the sun is still the sun in its own distinct majesty and presence and individuality. But the sun is also in its powers. So Krishna says, I am the sweet fragrance, I am the taste in water, the light of the sun, the moon, the syllable Om. Just like Patanjali said, Ishvara's Om. There's heard in the Vedas, I am sound in space, I am the vitality of mankind. I am the fragrance of the earth and warmth in the fire. I am the life in all creatures. I am the penance of ascetics. I am the eternal seed of all beings. All of these things. I am the splendor of things splendid. It goes on like this. I am the strength of the strong. I am desire found in all beings that is not against Dharma. I'm righteous desire, not unrighteous desire. What else? All states of being, whether sattva, rajas, or tamas, come from me alone. But I am not in them. They are in me. God is still distinct and transcendent. Everything's in God, but God is not exhausted that. God is immanent in everything. Everything's in God, immanence, but transcendent, also distinct. Okay, so I am in them. I am not in them, but they are in me. Okay, light is in the sun, but the sun is distinct from its light in some sort of way. Deluded by these three states of being, that's sattva, rajas, and tamas, consisting of the three gunas, this whole world is unable to recognize me, right? We're covered by our senses, by our bodies. We can only see physical things empiricism. We make inferences from that. And so, we can't see God. And that's often atheists will say, well, if there's a God, why can't I see him? Show me God. Well, we're covered by, Krishna says here, we're covered by the three gunas. We're covered by the gunas. Our ability to perceive is massively limited. Why are we going to see God? We can't even see our own minds. You can't see a mind. You have a mind because you think, but you can't see it. Think about that. What to speak of, a soul. You can't even see your own mind or your intellect, although you have them because you experience thoughts. So this whole world is unable to recognize me, who am above the gunas, transcendent, beyond matter. We're covered by matter. We can only see material things. Simple as that. Indeed, my divine energy composed of the gunas. The gunas are actually, why are they divine? Because they are powers of God, and their source is divine, and that makes them indirectly divine. This divine energy is difficult to overcome. Duratyaya. But here, those who approach me can transcend the energy. If we want to be free from the bonds of the world, from suffering, from old age, from death, then Gita is saying, then we surrender to Bhagavad, to Krishna. But the evil who are ignorant, lowest of mankind, whose learning has been carried away by illusion, they do not approach me. or who follow malevolent nature. So there's, there's those that are hostile to God and hostile to other beings and hostile to the planet and just out to feed their own interests. All right, we can name a few powerful beings in our own moment if we choose to, that seem bent on, heedless of our environmental problems and simply interested in accumulated masses of wealth with no concern for other human beings and for the fate of the planet. We can, if we want to sit down and very quickly, some names might come to mind. So Krishna is saying here, there are those ignorant of their own nature, that they're really ultimately souls, they're materialists, they think all there is the here and now, and therefore they wish to accumulate power, to feed off of the ego, of how much they have, how much they own, and so forth. They're ignorant, the lowest of mankind. They're just self-centered, whose learning is being carried away by illusion. They think, I am body, there is no God, there's no soul, there's only this life. Let me claw my way to the top and let me exert power over everybody else. They have a malevolent nature. They don't care about the fate of others. Send them off to war, they get slaughtered on the battlefield. I don't care. They cannot approach me, says Krishna. Now, O bull of the Bharatas, all this is Arjuna. 4 kinds of righteous, those are not the evil one, righteous persons worship me. Who worships God? The afflicted, those in distress, number 1. The inquisitive, which would be where are we? Chaturvidha bhajanti mam janaha sukritino arjuna arto jignasu. He's got the order wrong, but it doesn't matter. The afflicted, the inquisitive, those who desire personal gain, you pray to God to give you things, and the truly learned. Okay, the jnanis I wouldn't translate as an inquisitive about themselves or the soul, but let's not worry about that. Amongst the great souls, those 4 types, the one who is truly learned, whose devotion is single-pointed and who is constantly disciplined is best. The one who really knows that there is a God and focuses his mind on God, constantly disciplined and strives for God, the one who's devoted to God, the saint. I'm exceedingly dear to the person of learning, and that person is dear to me. All of them are exalted souls, all of them who turn to God. In that sense, they're pious, they're theistic. But the one who is truly learned is my very self, the one who really approaches God not for something, not for wealth, not to resolve a personal problem, not even to receive moksha, liberation, like Patanjali, not asking God for anything, but just surrendering to God because God is wonderful and surrender worthy. That, Krishna says, is exceedingly dear. Out of the 4, that one. Because the other 3 want something from God. Krishna says they're all noble, they're all great pious souls, but the others want something from me. Then it's not pure. They're approaching me for something. They're motivated. It's like if you have a friend. Imagine you have 4 friends, and one only comes to you when they have a problem, and the other only comes to you when he wants to borrow some money, and the other only comes to you when they want some help with learning. And then there's a 4th friend who doesn't ask for anything, just thinks you're totally cool and wonderful and wants to hang with you. Who would you be partial to? So Krishna says they're all 4 are noble, but the one who is constantly disciplined is best, whose devotion is single-pointed, only me, doesn't want anything else. The others want something else. They want money from God and then take the money and go do something else, and they forget about God. Or they want God to resolve a problem resolved, thank you, bye-bye, I don't need God anymore, till my next problem. Then I come back and come back to church again. Not like that. Single-pointed, doesn't want anything else. Constantly disciplined is best. And all these are exalted souls, but the one who is truly learned is my very self, the one who knows there is a God, and the goal of life is to know God, no other goal. Everything else is useless at the moment of death. Everything else is temporary, fleeting, and unfulfilling. Such a devoted soul has taken a shelter in me as the highest goal, understands me as the highest goal. That's my opinion. And at the end of many births, even such a great soul may take many births. The person of learning surrenders completely. Takes a few births. You might be halfway there, but to really 100% surrender to God, give up all desires, all personal interest, all self-interest at all, and simply to do God's will. Takes many births, Krishna says, to get to that exalted point. And then when you get there, what do you think? Vasudeva is the name of Krishna. Vasudeva is everything, everything. Prakriti is God. The soul is God. My soul is a spark of God. My mind that I'm thinking these thoughts, that's an instrument given to me by God. All of that. Vasudeva is all. Such a great soul is rare. But those whose knowledge has been carried away by desires, they worship other small gods. Notice with a small g. So Hinduism has a big God, supreme being, and then they have little celestial beings that are subject to karma like you or I. You could become a celestial being, you do good karma, you go to a celestial realm in the next life, you have lots of powers, but you don't stay there forever. When your karma runs out, you come back down. But while you're there, you have power like a senator or a politician. You work hard, you get votes, you're a senator, you now have power, people will approach you for favors. So like that. So those whose knowledge has been carried by desires surrender to the other gods and follow different regulations governed by their nature, their desires. You want something, you approach a certain god, small god, to give you a son or a daughter, or some other god will give you whatever it might be, wealth, and so forth. But and Krishna says that's okay. So to whatever divine manifestation they choose to worship, I make their faith strong. He says, all right, you want to worship some other little gods? I not only do I not object, I'll actually give you faith. How about that? Very different from the God of the Old Testament. He's a jealous God. Thou shalt not worship other gods before me. It's very different. She says, you want worship, I'm the supreme God. It's very clear. If you want to worship these secondary gods, these powerful, small divinities, not only do I not object, I'll give you the faith. Look, I will make the faith strong. And so endowed with such a faith, they endeavor to worship that particular deity and thereby fulfill their desires. He says, in fact, it's all arranged by me because ultimately I'm the supreme being. I'm the one who empowers the gods, the small gods, who can then satisfy your trivial, petty desires. Okay, so this is the Gita. But what's wrong with that? Well, the rewards of their worship are perishable. They'll give you stuff, but stuff is perishable. You want a child, you get a child, but the child will grow up and leave. He won't even write to you anymore. They're perishable. You want some wealth, things, then the wealth goes. You want some material thing, well, they give, the celestials can give it to you, but it won't last. And their intelligence is meager, limited. They want very limited little material things, not ultimate truth, not an eternal relationship with God. So those who worship the little gods go to the gods. But my bhaktas come to me, and of course that's it. That will be an eternal kingdom of God, eternal destination. Right. Let's skip 24, 25. Covered by my Maya. Where are we? Yoga Maya Samavritaha. Covered by my Maya, my power of illusion. I'm not visible to all. We're all covered by matter. We can only see things, material things with material senses. We can't see God with eyes made of, fleshy eyes, as somebody put it once, one of the commentators. Nyaya, remember the fleshy eyes of Nyaya Vachaspati. I'm not visible to all. This deluded world knows me not. We're deluded by the gunas, trapped by our even Kant famously understood that we cannot perceive the noumenon. We can only perceive phenomenon. We can only see that which our minds are able to see, which is trapped in space and time. The noumenon, that which lies beyond it, we don't know what that is. We can't see it. Kant famously, great philosopher, Western philosopher. Krishna says something like that. This deluded world knows me not. I'm unborn and imperishable. I know all beings that have existed in the past. Omniscience, remember Patanjali's omniscience. I know all beings that exist in the present, all beings will exist in the future, but no one in fact knows me. This is what omniscience means. Remember Nyaya? He must be omniscient because the world is beginningless, and he's sustained it since beginningless times. He connects karma to the right Atman, so he must know everything. Okay. So, but 28, all right, 27. At the very moment of birth, beings become bewildered by illusion. The minute we're born, we identify with little baby bodies. We relate to taste, the mother's nipple. We immediately consciousness is thrust into identifying with a little baby body and the objects of the sense as experienced by the baby. Right in the minute of birth, we're thrust into this material consciousness of thinking I am matter, and objects of the world out there are either pleasurable or not pleasurable. That's illusion, because actually the Atman is the eternal self, and it's distinct from the body. All right, so we wanted to go to chapter 9. All right, let's finish. How does the chapter finish off? Those who take shelter of me, who strive from the release from old age and death, from suffering, in other words. If you want to be free of suffering, the only way is to surrender to God. If we don't surrender to God, we surrender to the world and the body, then the body gets old. Then we're subject to old age and then death. And that will be our fate. And then what? So a sensible person asks those kinds of questions. But those who surrender to God come to know all aspects of Brahman, all aspects of Brahman. All aspects. In other words, Brahman is world, Brahman is the soul. From Ramanuja point of view, Brahman is Ishvara. They know the Atman, okay, the sort of the Adhyatman, the soul, the entirety of karma, the Adibhuta, the Adideva. And he's got a footnote here, right? So he's got Adhyatman is the soul, Adibhuta is the world, and don't worry about it. You can read that if you're interested in this. Now we're going to go to chapter 9, because that's what we've got in the syllabus for today. We may not fit it all in. We'll continue. We've got, let's say, 10 more minutes, 20 more minutes. It's about 7 minutes in the first recording. So that means an hour and 13 in this. Right. So let's just jump. And chapter 9 then, Krishna says, Arjuna, because you're without envy, you have a pure heart, you are not envious of God, the idea of surrendering to higher power, you're not envious of that. You understand there's something higher than you, and you're quite happy to surrender to that. Because of that, I shall now declare this most secret wisdom, along with what is practical, not just secret wisdom, but how do you practice it? How do you experience that highest knowledge? We're calling it secret. I wouldn't call it secret, I'd call it intimate. And by knowing it, you'll overcome all that is inauspicious. So such learning is imperial wisdom, it's the highest wisdom, supreme mystery, it's most pure knowledge. It's directly perceived. I'm not just going to give you some dogma, some theology. I'm going to give you a method to perceive it. And it's established in Dharma. It's righteous. Not only is it transcendent truth, but even in this world, it's righteous as well. It corresponds to righteous behavior in the real world. It's everlasting and a joy to perform. It's easy. Bhakti is easy. Chanjali is very hard. Chittavriti Nirodha is very hard to do. Try stilling the mind. Give it a go. Take Om, or if you don't like the word Om, take any sound and see if you can fix your mind on it. And you'll see within seconds the mind wanders up. Why don't you do an experiment, my friends? Experiment with meditation. It doesn't have to be religious. You can have a secular experiment. Just take a word. If you don't like Om, Om comes recommended by Patanjali, but if you're uncomfortable, you think, oh, that's Hindu religious, and it doesn't work for you. Fine, then take any sound you like. Take Bom or Kom or anything. Take abracadabra and repeat it and try to fix your mind on it and see how hard that is. And then you have some respect. Perhaps that will give you some respect for what the real practice of yoga is that we discussed in the last class in terms of Patanjali, and here in terms of fixing the mind on God. So 3, O scorch of the enemy. right? Because he's a warrior. Those who have no faith in these teachings cannot attain me, and so return to the path of birth and death. If we don't, the only way out is to surrender to God, according to verse number 3. I'm not going to discuss 4 and 5 because it would take us too far afield. 6, as the mighty wind forever blows in the sky, so all beings eternally rest in me. Everything is supported in the powers, the various powers of God, powers of matter, and the very soul itself is a kind of a Shakti, a tattva of God, Jiva tattva, Jiva Bhuta. Try to understand this. At the end of time, remember the creation is cyclical. There's creation that lasts a few billion years, and then it dissolves into latent matter, and then again creation, like that cyclical creativity, right? There is a position amongst physicists of they don't call it the cyclical universe, there's a name for it. I forget, not rebounding, bouncing, something. There is this idea that there is a big bang, and then everything evolves out, then it all collapses back in, and then the whole thing starts again. So that's, it's not a mainstream position, but it's a marginal view, but at least it's being entertained. So that's what the Indian view is, that creation is cyclical. At the end of time, then, the end of the particular creative moment, cycle, all beings enter my nature, everything dissolves. Not like Shankara says, that it dissolves into unreality. No, Prakriti dissolves into the 3 gunas that just remained unagitated, neutralizing each other, and the souls are in a kind of state of hibernation. The souls that didn't get liberated from one creative cycle then will wait for the next one, and then they get re-injected according to their karma, right? So then the beginning of the next time, I again send forth all the creation, cyclical, through the agency of my material energy, my Prakriti. Look, Prakriti, there it is, Prakriti, right? I repeatedly send forth this host of beings, all the creatures, all the life forces in the universe, the bugs, the trees, the bacteria, anything that's alive has an Atman in it, my friends. Think of how many life forms that is. Think about it. Think of even within your body, you may have one Atman that is a dominant one. That's you. But what about all the the bacteria in your intestines and all the other living entities within your own body? Well, if there's a life, if there is an entity that can survive in its own autonomy, it has an Atman in it. The blade of grass, if it can live, it has an Atman in it. That's inconceivable. How many Atman in a field? How many blades of grass in one field? So I repeatedly send forth the beginning of creation, the host of beings, all the Atmans who struggle powerlessly under the control of matter. We have no power. We're subject to the laws of matter. We didn't get to choose our family. We don't get to choose when we die. We don't get to choose when illness strikes us. We don't get to choose which college we get into. And we think we do. We think we have power, but really, how much power do we have? So we're powerless under the control of matter. O conqueror of wealth, I am never bound by these actions. Krishna's not bound. We act and we're bound by our actions, not God. For I am seated as though neutral, unattached to all of this. He gives free will to the living entities. Okay, now here you have free will. Here's the world. You go ahead and use it in whatever way you want to use it. If you want to try to enjoy the world, you can, but everything you do will come back to you. That's the Lord come. And if you realize there is no enjoyment in the world, but that really your real true nature is to be united with me, I'm putting words into Krishna's mouth, then you use the world and you come back to me. You offer everything to me instead of trying to take it for yourself in your own enjoyment. Bhakti Yoga means you offer everything to God, become free of desire, detached, use whatever you have in the service of God, then you come to me. I am the overseer of material nature's Prakriti, which brings forth both moving and non-moving, right? Matter and spirit. The Atman and the non-Atman, the Chit and Atman and non-Atman. O son of Kunti, that's Arjuna. This entire universe forever moves with material nature as its cause. Everything is Prakriti, the gunas. And then because I have assumed this human-like form, just like Christians will relate to this, because Jesus was not recognized as the Son of God, right? He was crucified. by Pontius Pilate. So this idea that he wasn't recognized, even his own apostles didn't recognize him. I mean, they struggled to understand who he was. So Krishna says, because I have assumed this human form, fools scorn me, not understanding my supreme nature. And what's that? The Lord of beings, Ishvara. Let's see the word Ishvara again. Here we are. Let's blow this up. It's Maheshvara. It's two words. Maha plus Ishvara, the great Ishvara. Put them together, you get Maheshvara. Actually, two words. Okay. It's 11. Those whose hopes are baffled, whose actions are fruitless, whose learning is wasted, who lack all discrimination, they take shelter of a malevolent and deluding nature, right? Those who are selfish, destructive, they don't care about the world. Well, they do acts that destroy the world. We can, again, think of powerful beings in our news screens that fit this kind of category, right? But the great souls, so those are the not great souls. What about the great souls? They take shelter of my divine nature. They take shelter of God and worship me with undistracted mind, completely fixed mind. They know me. They know God, Bhagavan, Krishna, as the inexhaustible, eternal, never gets exhausted, never runs out of energy, inexhaustible source of all beings. Like most things that are creative forces, they lose their energy after a while. Not God. Ever devoted, always praising me, right? Here's the word kirtayanto, ever devoted, always praising, the Sanskrit kirtayanto. Some of you, especially maybe those of you with South Asian backgrounds, if you've been to mandirs and Hindu temples, you'll have heard of the word kirtan. But nowadays, kirtan is in Western yoga studios. It's no longer just in Hindu temples. You go to a yoga studio, it's true, mostly you'll get poses and postures, but many studios now, not every day, but maybe once a week, for small groups of those interested, someone will come and do kirtan. It's happening more and more. So even the practice is not just yoga as posture, which of course it isn't. It's supposed to be chitta vritti nirodha. We know that now. This posture is just a Western commodification of yoga. But some of these yoga studios, the ones that are more serious, they're reading the text now and they're studying and they're realizing that there's more than just these poses. And some of them have kirtans. They have right here in Princeton, where I live, in a yoga studio, once a week, they have a kirtan for Westerners. I mean, obviously Indians can go too, but I'm saying it's not just something you see in a Hindu temple now. You also see it in Main Street America, is my point. So that's what it means, praising, kirtan. They strive with firm resolves, the great souls, right? The great soul Mahatma. Look at the word here, Mahatma. We've all heard of Mahatma Gandhi. Here, Mahatman. Who is a Mahatma according to the Gita? One who is always striving. They take shelter of God and worship God with undistracted minds and are completely focused. God is everything. All right. So then let's jump a bit. I am the Father of the universe. God the Father. Krishna is saying he's God the Father, not the Son. God the Father, the supreme, ultimate causal being. I am the mother, the support, the grandfather, the object of knowledge. I am pure. I am Om. Remember Patanjali, Ishvara's Om. I am the Vedas, all of that. I am behind it all. I am the goal. And he goes on like this. I am the goal, the maintainer, the Lord. What's the Lord? Ishvara. No, it's Prabhu. It's a different word here. Prabhu. I am the Lord, the witness, the abode, the shelter, and the friend. I am the origin, the dissolution, the foundation, the reservoir. In other words, everything. He just hits on a few points. I create heat. I hold back and send forth rain. I am immortality as well as death. I am both. That doesn't necessarily mean God personally does that, but through these powers, God sets up the powers, and the powers, karma, prakriti, the gunas, but they're ultimately supported and sustained by the power of God. So we did a little bit about the Vedas. Remember the ritualism? Those who know the Vedas, who drink the celestial beverage, whose evils are purified, they worship me with sacrifice, Vedic ritualism. They desire the celestial realm, not Christian heaven, the temporary celestial realms. And upon reaching the worlds of the pious, they enjoy the celestial delights in the heavenly world of Indra. And having enjoyed the vast realm of heaven, they eventually come back. That's why yogis, they don't want to go to a celestial realm, because it's the same thing. You're just trying to enjoy matter at higher level of enjoyment. But when your karma runs out, then they eventually re-enter the world of mortals. When their merit has been exhausted, karma runs out. Right? If you have $1 million and you go to Hawaii and you stay in a hotel, $1,000 a night, you think, oh, I'll stay here forever, right? But $1 million, $1,000 a night, you can do the math. How long do you get? Less than 3 years. Then you come back down, back to New Brunswick. So in this way, those who follow the religion of the Vedas seek to fulfill their desires. They're not seeking God. They're seeking their own desires. They obtain what is temporary, so they get their desires, but your desires are just temporary. Look what happened here. Ooh. Oh no, this is an important one. Let's see if we, oh gosh, this was messed up. But this is very important, 26. I accept that offering from a devoted soul. Here he says, I offer a leaf, a fruit, a flower, and water. If you offer it to love, to me with love, not asking for anything, not like the Vedic ritualists. They're asking for all kinds of things. He's saying, if you worship me, you don't have to be wealthy, you don't have to be learned, you don't have to be a big scholar, you don't have to be a big yogi. You just offer with devotion. And he says, unfortunately, it's cut off, verse 66. He says, a leaf, a flower, and he continues to say, a fruit, patram pushpam palam toyam, is the Sanskrit. A fruit, flower, water, or a leaf. I'll accept that. Bhakti is very simple. Sorry about that. Didn't know that was messed up like that. This is bhakti. Whatever deeds you perform, whatever you eat, whatever rituals you do, whatever charity you give, whatever austerity, do it as an offering. This is devotion to God. But whatever we do in this world, we got to eat, right? So if you're, in many Hindu traditions, before you eat food yourself, you offer it to your family deities. You offer it to a picture of your beloved Bhagavan, Krishna, Shiva, whoever it is. You offer it. So everything is offered. And in this way, you will be freed from the bonds of action. No karma. That kind of action does not generate karma. It actually has an opposite effect. It burns past karma. You'll be freed, whether auspicious or inauspicious. Being so engaged in the discipline of renunciation, you will be freed and you'll come to me. This is bhakti. So this is God as not just a philosophical principle, Ishvara, that's debated over, but this is real God in real entering into the world and manifesting power, doing really cool things. And we'll read some of the stories of Krishna at the end of the semester. And receiving a worship in these very simple ways, offerings of, puja, it's called in Hinduism. You offer fruits and flowers and incense and so forth. I'm equal to all. I hate no one, and nor am I partial to anyone. Everyone's a soul ultimately. But those who worship me with devotion, I am in them and they are in me. So just as, Krishna says, everyone has a chance, everyone has free will, everyone can turn to me. I'm equal to everybody. But when you do turn to me, then I favor that person. But anyone can receive my favor by becoming a bhakta. A bhakta is someone who does bhakti. Bhakti is devotion, worship, surrender of God. Surrender, not just worship, but surrendering the mind, having complete faith that God is in control of everything, number one. And number two, letting oneself be a vessel. Instead of acting out of desire for the self, for my body and my mind, I'm seeking good things for the body and emotional satisfaction for the mind, me. Everything is done for as an act of, as a surrender to God, and one invites God to take over one's life, and one's mind, and one's body. One must become just a puppet, like a puppet, actually. And that's where one finds one's true happiness. Thus claims the tradition. And those who worship me, even if they perform the most abominable deed, even if they come from a bad background, they're certainly to be considered righteous, for their resolution is correct and they quickly become righteous. It's not that they stay bad, but no one is excluded, saint or sin. If you're a sinner, Unlike, Vedic ritualism, you have to be very high caste Brahmin. But in Bhakti, no, whoever you are, whatever your background, even if you're, you've been bad, you've been, what does he say? Sudur, apichat suduracharo. Even if you've done the very, very worst kind of activity, once you make that resolve, then you're considered righteous and you quickly become righteous. You don't stay a sinner. By that very resolve itself, okay, whatever I've done, and now I give myself to God. At that moment, your resolve is pure, and then you quickly, you don't remain unrighteous, you quickly become righteous. That's what he says here. Quickly they become righteous, and they find eternal peace. O son of Kunti, know my devotee never perishes. My bhakta never perishes. And all who take shelter, remember women, low birth, Vaishya, the merchants and working class, they're excluded from Vedic ritualism. Women and the other castes, only the male Brahmins can do Vedic ritualism. Only male Brahmins can study in certain Vedantic communities, the Vedanta. Not in Bhakti. All that's swept aside. Caste is swept aside. Gender is swept aside. Race is swept aside. The Bhagavata Purana we'll read at the end of the semester. So it doesn't matter what your race is, what your gender is, what tribe you come from. All can become the highest, topmost bhaktas, best yogis in existence. So those who take shelter of me, even though they are low birth, from social hierarchical point of view, we don't like to think like that nowadays, but in ancient India, people did think about caste, higher and lower castes. If they're merchants or sudras or women who are normally excluded from Vedic ritualism and Vedanta study, they all attain a supreme destination. So what to speak of the real pious brahmanas or the devoted saintly orders of princes? What to speak of those who are fully dedicated? So having once come to this temporary world without happiness, just worship me. Here we are in this temporary world. Somehow or other, we keep failing to find that true bliss. You have to decide for yourself whether that's true or not for you. But that's what the Gita says. We know it's a temporary world. No one can deny that. But it says without happiness. Ask yourself, have you ever found your real happiness? I mean, obviously, we all find momentary little periods, but it doesn't last, my friend. So ask yourself if that's true or not. Ask yourself. You don't need anyone to answer that for you. So having come to this temporary world without happiness, just worship me, but just for mom. And what does that mean? Fix your mind on me all the time. Think of God all the time, right? If you're a Krishna Bhakta, that means think of Krishna all the time. It doesn't just mean some abstract principle God. Krishna's saying, I'm God, I'm Brahman, I'm Ishvara. So think of Krishna. That's the message of the Gita, but of course there are other forms of God. But fix your mind on me, become my devotee, worship me, offer homage to me in this way, fully absorbed in me, you will come to me. That's chapter 9, my friends. We got through it. The perfect timing, really, because we had 7 minutes, and now this is 1 hour and 10. That means 1 hour and 11, and that was over 7. So we're just about 1 hour and 20 minutes. So here's the Gita. I hope you're very different sort of feel to it. You can see how this much easier to read the text. No problem. Not like Nyaya. Probably may have struggled. Not, maybe that wasn't your thing. But hopefully now, didn't I tell you the end of the semester that it would be more user-friendly, more real, more, it's not just some abstract philosophical debate. Is there a God? Is there not a God? But now this is really, what is God? What does that mean to have God in one's life? What does it mean to dedicate oneself to God? What is the Hindu way of understanding devotion? And hopefully this is giving you a really nice glimpse at that, the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, my friends? So I'm hoping you're a bit happier now. Maybe you were happy all along, I don't know, but if any of you struggled, hopefully you're feeling a bit more secure in your ability to understand the text. Easy to read, straightforward, simple, as devotion should be. It's not complicated. You don't need to be a big philosopher or a Sanskritist. Okay, my friends, so we are going to stop. Oh God, I lost a class yesterday. I don't know what I did wrong. Entire class, not this class. I lost a class for what was it? Krishna, the Krishna course. We're actually having a Krishna course, just the life of Krishna. This is Krishna as the teacher of the Gita. But my other course I'm teaching this semester is the life of Krishna. And and what devotion looks like in Krishna's interaction with his devotees when he incarnates. And I lost a whole class, so I have to get. I have no idea why, and the techies can't help me. They're up as Zoom techies, so that's not good. Have a great rest of the day, everybody, and we'll see you in the next recording. Jai Shri Krishna. Right, now I'm going to, okay, that one's pause recorded. I'm just going to practice this. To give me a second.